Hello everyone, welcome to today's class. I'm David, let's get started. Principles are fundamental truths that serve as foundations for behavior. They are based on cause and effect in the universe. Understanding the application of different principles enables us to live wisely. In our daily lives, we are faced with an infinite number of situations we must respond to. Without understanding the principles summarized by our ancestors, we are forced to react to these situations without knowing what's in store for us. With the help of these principles, we can view problems by standing on the shoulders of giants and make the right choices. We're going to talk about three famous principles in today's lesson. First, we'll discuss the butterfly effect and its impact on history. Second, we'll go into the catfish effect and how it benefits businesses. Third, we'll explain first principles thinking and examples of how it has been used successfully. The butterfly effect is the subject of many movies and books, as well as pop culture. You may have heard this term before, but do you know what it is? The butterfly effect is a metaphor which can be described as sensitive dependence on initial conditions, or deterministic chaos. To put it simply, small causes can have large effects. The term butterfly effect was first used by Professor Edward Lorenz. It comes from the example that a butterfly flapping its wings could potentially lead to a tornado several weeks later. Lorenz was the first to recognize certain changes in weather systems. While observing tests in his weather model, he discovered small data that was altered in a seemingly insignificant way would produce a very different outcome. He realized that small differences in a dynamic system like the atmosphere could trigger unsuspected results. These observations led him to formulate what we call the butterfly effect. Lorenz's early discoveries opened up a new field of study in practically every branch of science, like biology, computer science, engineering, and economics. Because of this, scientists are now less inclined to underestimate the innate complexity of the world. The many systems of the world, from the atmosphere to the stock market, are more complex than people originally thought. For the last few decades, modern science has evolved. Science no longer emphasizes stability, permanence, and predictability. Instead, scientists have realized our everyday lives are filled with instability, sensitivity, and unpredictability. Because of this, the butterfly effect is not just a metaphor. It is a symbol of contemporary science and learning. There are many famous examples of the butterfly effect throughout history. One example is the assassination of U.S. President John F. Kennedy. Let's take a look at what our course says about this. An event that shook the world was the assassination of U.S. President John Kennedy. He was shot while riding in a motorcade in the city of Dallas, Texas. Kennedy and his wife were sitting in an open car, waving to a large crowd of people when he was shot. They were sitting in an open car with no protection because the sky was clear. It had rained until about 10 a.m., but then the sun came out. If the sky hadn't cleared, there would have been a bubble top or clear roof on the car. This would have prevented the assassination. If the route had been different, the assassination probably wouldn't have taken place. If the fatal shot had been off just by a little, Kennedy might have survived. We can see that one small detail, the weather changing, made it possible for the president to be killed. If that never happened, history would have been very different, but the butterfly effect took place. The assassination of John F. Kennedy isn't the only example. Another famous example of the butterfly effect is the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand. Franz Ferdinand was the heir to the throne of Austria-Hungary in the early 1900s. During this time, there were great tensions between Austria-Hungary and Serbia. Many Serbs wanted the southern provinces of Austria-Hungary to break free from it and become part of Yugoslavia. On June 28, 1914, Ferdinand and his wife were visiting Bosnia and Herzegovina. On that day, someone threw a grenade at their car but missed. The bomb exploded behind them, hurting the passengers in the following car. After a short rest, the royal couple insisted on seeing all those who had been injured by the grenade. However, no one told the drivers that the itinerary had been changed. When the driver realized this, they turned around to go to the hospital. As the cars backed down the street and onto a side street, the line of cars came to a halt. During this time, the assassin was in a cafe across the street. When he saw the car, he immediately walked across the street and shot the royal couple. If not for the wrong turn made by Franz's driver, he would not have been shot. If he had not been shot, Austria-Hungary would not have declared war on the home country of the assassin. As a result, the allies of both Serbia and Austria-Hungary would not have declared war on each other at that time. This would not have caused Germany to declare war on Russia, followed by France and Belgium. Then the UK would not have declared war on Germany. Thus, World War I would not have started. Had Franz not been assassinated, World War I would never have happened that way. It may not have been prevented, but it certainly would have started differently. This could have changed the outcome. All of this because a car took a wrong turn and stalled in the middle of the road. The butterfly effect was certainly at work. The butterfly effect not only affects history, but businesses as well. An obvious example is when a business first opens. The initial conditions, such as economic, social, cultural, and political, are crucial to its success. The smallest change in preliminary conditions can create a drastic outcome for the business. The first few months and years of a business are paramount. Rates of failure are highest, and the basic brand identity forms during this period. Any early decisions, achievements, or mistakes have the potential to be the wing flap of the butterfly that creates a storm. Smart businesses know the power of the butterfly effect and use it to their advantage. A great management challenge involves moving toward continuous innovation to stay competitive in the market. Wise companies are implementing low-cost and customer-focused moves in their business strategies to appeal to customers. This leads to competitive advantage in the market. The butterfly effect is implemented by making a small change in a company's strategy. This can be regarding products, price, location, and other elements to gain higher market share and profit in a short span. The butterfly effect is obvious in the market during peak sales season, giving that a small discount can leverage a higher market share. Small changes have also been critical to the success and failure of products. Take the classic rock record, Rock Around the Clock. When it was first released in 1954, it was a commercial failure. It sold just 75,000 copies. However, it was re-released a year later, after it was included in the opening credits of the film Blackboard Jungle. As a result, sales went through the roof. Teens couldn't get their hands on the hit record fast enough. It ended up becoming the best-selling record of the 1950s in the UK. Simply playing the song in the opening of a film turned a product failure into a huge success. While the butterfly effect can lead to financial success, it can also lead to financial disaster. When the Hubble telescope was being constructed, a chip of paint came off. This made the Hubble unable to take clear photos. The microscopic chip of paint came off a measuring rod that was supposed to make sure the mirror was in the right shape. As a result, it started giving back false readings. And the mirror ended up being off by an extremely small distance, 25 times smaller than the width of a human hair. This seemingly minuscule problem ended up being costly. It ended up costing billions of dollars to fix the mirror. Outside of business, understanding the butterfly effect can help us make better choices in our personal lives. Let me give you two famous English sayings. No decision is an isolated choice. It's a chain of events. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. If we follow this wisdom, we'll be able to make smarter choices and decisions. And we'll be more careful even when we're making decisions that seem insignificant. Sometimes it seems like nothing we do even matters. But sometimes the smallest acts have enormous effects, not just on ourselves and the people around us, but the entire world. And the effects can be either positive or negative. Maybe someone who decides to check their email one more time before going to bed may think of a new idea for a product. Perhaps a team member says something motivating in a meeting to boost low employee morale. Let's say a man was working in a company where he was mistreated by his manager. After months of being mistreated, he decided to quit. Before the man left the company, he spoke out about it to other employees. After this, 4 other people also decided to quit. These employees were unable to find work, so they decided to start their own business. After a certain period of time, their business became very successful. It became so successful that they started competing with the company they previously worked for. Because of the fierce competition, the old company couldn't compete and ended up declaring bankruptcy. The butterfly effect is a powerful principle which is visible in so many facets of life. But another effect which is less well known can be just as powerful, the catfish effect. The catfish effect is the impact of a strong competitor on a weaker competitor. The stronger competitor will push the weaker competitor to better themselves. This effect gets its name from an interesting story. In Norway, live sardines are far more expensive than frozen ones. People said that only one ship could bring live sardines home, and the shipmaster kept his method a secret. After he died, people found a catfish in the tank. The catfish would swim around in the tank with the sardines, and the sardines tried to avoid this predator. Because the sardines remained active instead of sedentary, they were able to survive the trip home. The catfish effect has several applications. In human resource management, the catfish effect is a common strategy. It is used to motivate a team so that each member feels strong competition. This helps keep up the constructive competition of the whole team. Gamification in the workplace, an increasingly popular method of encouraging productivity, exploits the catfish effect. Perhaps salespeople will have different levels. The better their performance, the better their sales level will be. This will keep them striving to increase their level. A sales leaderboard also helps support this. A sales leaderboard tracks a team's performance. They display individual performance side by side, making it easy to see which members of a sales team are ahead of target or behind target. Companies should continue to add hungry, new blood rather than those who simply rest on their laurels. This will arouse the sardines to fight for their survival within the company. For competition between companies to survive the catfish, they need to stay innovative. Companies need to continue to introduce new technologies, processes, and management concepts. This enables them to keep up with market demands and enhance survivability and adaptability. Customers benefit from different companies competing and innovating thanks to the catfish effect. More competition and innovation leads to lower prices and more choices for customers. The catfish effect affects us outside of work as well. Parents may push their children to do their best in school. In sports, for example, a runner who is running against faster opponents will be pushed to run their fastest in order to try and keep up with or beat their opponents. If we surround ourselves with individuals who are motivated to achieve great things in life, we'll also be more motivated to push ourselves to succeed rather than resting on our laurels. If the people around us are stagnant, chances are we may become stagnant too. But if the sardines around us are moving, we will move with them. The catfish effect is not the only thing businesses can use to improve. First principle thinking can also help companies think outside the box and innovate. A first principle is a basic, foundational concept that cannot be made any more basic. A very important benefit comes from understanding first principles. the ability to deconstruct complex problems. First principles allow us to take any idea, no matter how complex it is, and break it down into parts. Then we break those down further until we get to the core building blocks. While this process is not easy, it is valuable. It allows us to see things from a different perspective and uncover solutions and approaches that were otherwise invisible. Elon Musk is a perfect example of a leader who utilizes first principles thinking in business. For Musk, first principles thinking refers to reasoning from first principles rather than by analogy. It is the act of simplifying the process to the fundamental parts that you know are true and building up from there. Most people use analogy rather than first principles thinking when trying to come up with new ideas or solve problems. With analogy, the thought process is, we are doing this because it's like something else that was done, or it is like what other people are doing. Analogical thinking takes your understanding from one domain and compares it to another. When Musk and his team were estimating the cost of the first SpaceX rockets, they could have used analogical thinking on the products on the market. But his team didn't settle for this approach. To purchase a rocket, they would have needed to spend $65 million. This was far beyond their budget, so instead, they used first principles thinking and decided to work from the bottom up. First, they figured out what the necessary parts of a rocket were. Then, they found out how much the raw materials of those parts would cost. The result, SpaceX could build a rocket at just 2% of the normal price. Using first principles thinking enabled his company to do two things. First, they were able to save a tremendous amount of money. And second, it enabled him to achieve something that originally seemed to be impossible. Let's look at another example of Musk's ingenious usage of first principles thinking in his venture into Tesla. At first, people argued that electric cars would never work because the price of batteries was too high. The cost of batteries is high, therefore electric vehicles are not cost-effective. This is another example of analogical thinking. Musk explains by looking at the battery in first principles, the cost is not an obstacle. If you buy the individual parts of a battery separately and assemble them yourself, the cost is significantly lower. Not only businesses can benefit from first principles thinking, we personally can also benefit from making use of first principles thinking. First principles thinking is useful when applied to solving problems in your life. To do this, you first need to determine what the problems are in your life. This may take some time, but once you have located the problem areas, you need to break them down into their fundamental parts. To solve your problem, we need to start with the three basic questions that any first principles thinker needs to ask. What am I trying to accomplish? What is the fundamental problem? What really matters? Let's take exercise, for example. What is the end goal? Is it to lose weight? Is your daily life affected by your lack of physical movement? Does it matter for you in terms of appearance, overall well-being, or something else? From there, start researching and breaking down what your daily habits are. When do you have time to exercise? And what type of exercise you want to do. Once you've broken the problem down, you will be ready to create your new framework. This will give you the room for greater creativity and offer multiple paths to achieve your goal. After today's lesson, will you be more careful about the decisions you make? Will you be more competitive at work? Do you often think about how you can improve your life? Perhaps from today's lesson, you'll have a new perspective and think of new ways to make your life better. Let's quickly review what we've learned today. First, we discussed what really matters. Let's take exercise, for example. What is the end goal? Is it to lose weight? Is your daily life affected by your lack of physical movement? Does it matter for you in terms of appearance, overall well-being, or something else? From there, start researching and breaking down what your daily habits are. When do you have time to exercise? And what type of exercise you want to do. Once you've broken the problem down, you will be ready to create your new framework. This will give you the room for greater creativity and offer multiple paths to achieve your goal. After today's lesson, will you be more careful about the decisions you make? Will you be more competitive at work? Do you often think about how you can improve your life? Perhaps from today's lesson, you'll have a new perspective and think of new ways to make your life better. Let's quickly review what we've learned today. First, we discussed the butterfly effect and its impact on history. Second, we touched on the catfish effect and how it benefits business. And third, we explained first principles thinking and examples of how it has been used successfully. As humans, we learn by observing the world around us and having different experiences. By understanding the effects and principles that affect our lives, we can know ourselves better and become smarter and wiser. That's it for today. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed the lesson. See you next time. Goodbye.